where those who perceive truth may strive to make others see.
A big, powerful America, and shoot them for what?
On that continent, we are trying to forge a new identity for which we need each other.
I want you to imagine you're invited to a gathering of sorts, and there the speaker he's it's clear there's a following behind him, and he starts literally like knocking off every as he's speaking, knocking off every point, everything that you really view as wrong with society. But instead of just saying this plainly, he points to an enemy. So this is really a long time coming, I suppose. I've read through, and I think this is the long. This is going to be definitely something to be studied further in terms of in general, but what I've read for this particular audio is the Handbook of Revolutions by Roger Shaw, and this is going over like a lot of different revolutions we'll talk about, and really when it comes down to the clip before, like this idea of a frustrated populace leading to a revolution of sorts is like, I mean, it seems surreal when you're living in a society that's operating. And unfortunately, what we're seeing today is a society that isn't quite operating, and we're seeing orators take advantage, and the elephant in the room, of course, is Trump. And there's a lot of really what's the frustration that's in the background here, but I think what's really important is that people are fed up, and people are frustrated with society. And if someone says they have the answer with enough vigor, then it seems a lot of people will follow that person. I don't think, and I don't think that Trump has the answers, and I don't think that I think this nomination of J.D. Vance is really saying the quiet part out loud in terms of this being the VP, and surrounding yourselves by people who are clearly in the establishment. Of course, J.D. Vance being attached to Teal is a problem in itself, and like I said, I think it's really the quiet part out loud in terms of exposing what a lot of people may think of. Now, this book starts off with Amazonians, and this element of like these guys, or these women, were able to make babies and kill off the male of the species. And this was an accepted practice amongst Amazonians. This is crazy, but I mean, apparently, like, something of note is that they burnt off part of their chest or breast, and this allowed for them to better use bow and arrows. And it seems stark in terms of at some point, someone that was the solution, was to get rid of males. And I think that a lot of today's rhetoric does revolve around the toxic toxic feminism is essentially anti-masculine or anti-male. And I think that's something that I believe needs to be called out in terms of in general, but I think we really are seeing that. It goes on to talk about the revolt of the gladiators, and these were like, essentially, these gladiators rose up and they were able to speak to this populace of slaves. And this is really like revolving around this figure of Spartacus being able to, in being revered and respected by slaves and slave owners. And of course, his name lives on, but this was squashed in terms of this rebellion. And but the element of slave and slave masters, I think, exist now in a different form of corporations gaining a tremendous amount of control over populations. And I think that this is a tremendous part of the frustration that we're talking about in terms of today. There's and the next story is revolving around the Children's Crusade of 1212. And these children were essentially led by a vision of creating this magical city, and it's definitely something of note in terms of the importance of a vision like that. In terms of it definitely resonated with my vision for the Foundry in general, or populations in general. This idea of they were quashed, and the same people who essentially applauded them, they were mocked by these same crowds as they went to return home, with I think they had a lot less people involved in terms of the return, but it was very much something that I think I think of how Texas, and really the element of I think they went through something. They went through some kind of blackout, I believe, a blackout or storm, and I remember walking in the office, and my manager at this office was was laughing, and this is an engineering office, and I'm thinking to myself this is I think there's a respect that that a lot of us need to have for people who try. And I think this element is it's for some reason it's I believe it's I mean, I think we can really call this a sickness of sorts, to really point at and laugh at people who dare do something, you know, who dare defy what to defy our limitations that we place upon ourselves. Next up, we talk about, there's like a peasant rising of the Middle Ages that is talked about, and you know, this idea of taxation. People were like fed up and with this idea of giving money to, you know, this you know, in this case, you know, royalty or kings or merchants, and they rose up. They wanted to make people pay. They wanted to make people pay, particularly poll taxes, to move across land, and it just got so, and it just got too much for the people, and eventually they rose up. The next one is Puritans on strike, and this was that Cromwell makes an appearance here, and a lot of people are this is that Cromwell makes an appearance here, and he refused power apparently in this idea of power, you know, centralized power and hierarchy was refused. And this is also where it's thought of as the origination of the left versus the right, and it's really kind of scary in terms of the idea of the right really centered around the king and the church, and some figure representing divine rule. And the left was really with more like evolving around like innovation around trade and finance. Definitely something I think deserve worthy of note. Also, the next story is the Industrial Revolution, and this was a revolution, and this made it into the book, and I think it's important to note like this idea of a revolution. This doesn't necessarily have to be revolving around violence or people in general, but more so technology, and this idea of the right technology being transformative to populations, and the changes that leads to. Definitely noteworthy in terms of this idea of an industrial revolution. In particular, they were innovating around the idea of travel, and I think commerce. This idea created more opportunity for work, and a lot behind that, of course. But you know, regardless of the, you know, how people the result of this industrial revolution, I think it's really important to note that. There's the American Revolution, which most of us are familiar with, most of us should be familiar with, and I think a lot of people don't know really a lot behind the American Revolution, but I think a tremendous factor was really the French in terms of like help from the outside. And another thing was Russia was approached for troops, but they were really they denied. They denied America for support, or in terms of support. Could have certainly left a bit of frustration in the air in terms of dealing with them in the future. But I'm not sure. I haven't studied the politics behind that. And the French Revolution, it was something to where really intelligent populations of people like were able to get up and say, I guess an intelligent populace really coming up to say, why does this caste deserve XYZ, being really essential to this idea of revolution in general. The next revolution was Latin American cycle, and this was America really being controlled, Latin America being controlled by this idea of Europe. But Americans seen this as a direct threat to this idea of democracy, and essentially they were able to support a revolution that was more widespread. And what's another thing I think is it was called the European cycle. One thing of note was that monarchs, kings were supportive of each other, and this idea of the ruling class being very much supportive of other ruling classes. The idea of kingship, they were able to really connect based on class, and it was very important. The next revolution is where Lincoln. The next revolution here is where Lincoln frees the slaves, and this idea is what's noteworthy here is this revolution was really, or this supposed revolution was one that wasn't revolved around bloodshed, and it was really a populace realizing, this leader realizing that we really can't continue on this road and call ourselves people who want to be free, or who are free of the ideas of being born into kingship and things of that nature. We can't continue on this road. And what's really funny is art and poetry really spread across. It was pretty heavy in terms of how they did things, with art and poetry revolving around. I mean, essentially, they were shamed into doing the right thing, and that was pretty cool to see art and poets and artists really being really having a factor, or playing a factor and playing a role. This is The next revolution revolves around Karl Marx, and this is the Paris Commune. And I wrote my notes around Karl Marx and importance in his writings, but this is the Paris Commune. Interesting, very much so, but not to where I have a lot of notes here. The idea of the Chinese Revolution, they were able to send students to America to study, and I think they essentially, like, it came down to, when you put the idea of a people who essentially own politics. I think it's a powerful idea in general, and it does look like that. I would say that would be a prime. This seed led to a revolution, and this is the Chinese Revolution in 1911. Like I said, I'm not familiar with the politics. I got the details of that, but it's very interesting. And this idea of the Russians and the Russian Revolution of 1917 is something that is something that needs to be a focus. And the idea here is Russians were able to, or really were what we now know is like really Russian, and the Russian populace is due to a series of really repeated invasions, and I don't know, it seems very interesting that we have this figure come up out of that, which is very much something in itself, in terms of like Putin and the way he exists, coming out of really this idea of being invaded repeatedly, and how that molded a population to where Putin would triumph. Indians and Indian Revolution. I've heard a few things about the Indian Revolution, and this idea was, I've heard about the more violent resistance, but apparently this idea of Gandhi bringing a peaceful resistance was also effective, and really very, very telling in terms of, I think this guy, this guy writes books and bias. Of course, I have my own bias, but this is very, very much interesting to see peaceful revolution and peaceful resistance. Definitely noteworthy to be in a, to really be in a push in a corner, and somehow you result to peace. And the British they had rule over things like salt, and a lot of trade, and eventually the idea is, I think one thing that always burns in my mind is India isn't ruled by anyone, but not even God rules over India, which was so funny to hear. But I think really telling in terms of the idea of Gandhi being this tremendous figure. Also, Indians fought in Palestine, and they were very apparently that was a big part of their history. The next thing we're talking about, or the next thing they talked about, is fascism and the evolution of fascism in Italy. And this was really thought of as a way to save capitalism, and the element of people somehow being the problem and in the way of existing how you want to exist. Very, very much what they resorted to was very, very much telling. Spanish Revolution. The Spanish Revolution revolved around this idea of students, and apparently I have peaceful revolution in question mark. I'm not sure exactly what happened there. And Hitler, I'm of course not nearly as up to date on as I should be on the rise of Hitler, but I have heard I've heard quite a bit. But the idea is the clip in the beginning was in terms of starting this whole thing off, this idea of a figure being a powerful orator, being able to speak. He was able to place, the frustrations into really an enemy, and this enemy, of course, was the Jewish people, and that was effective, or he was able to be effective in really a lot of different things. I think it is powerful when you have an enemy of any kind, and really this idea of how he grew, what he grew from. I think is something that, of course, is worthy in terms of this idea of a figure being able to convince people that their frustration is due to one group of people. The last one written about here is Roosevelt Revolution of 1933. Roosevelt came in after the stock market crash of 1929, and he offered hope to a hopeless people. Definitely something in terms of revolutions that happen, revolutions can happen within societies, within existing societies, and that's pretty powerful stuff. I haven't looked into this, but the NIRA was something that he heavily advocated for. Definitely would like to know more, or definitely am going to learn more about it. But like I said, this is the beginning of a long list in terms of studying revolutions. I think really having, in terms of impacting today, I think it's very, very important to study revolutions of the past. And I really like the idea of technology transforming societies and the idea of really like this element of opportunity transforming societies in such a powerful way. It's very telling, and that's the end of this book, Handbook of Revolutions by Roger Straw. I'm your bookman Sleepy, and hope to see you soon. Thank you.